I am Derek Sainsbury, and welcome to Gospel Tangents.
It's the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. The Nauvoo Expositor printed only one issue when Mayor Joseph Smith declared it a public nuisance and had the city council declare it should be destroyed. So why was Joseph Smith threatened by the Nauvoo Expositor? Was it over allegations of polygamy, or was there something else? Historian D. Michael Quinn has said that there were other things in there besides polygamy. I asked Dr. Derek Sainsbury if he agreed with that, and he did. We'll talk about what was in the expositor that Joseph wanted hid. Check out our conversation. Before we get to that, I just wanted to mention one more thing. As you know, Gospel Tangents has teamed up with the Dialogue Podcast Network. We can now be heard on lyceum.fm. That's lyceum.fm. So you can hear all your favorite podcasts, such as the Dialogue Podcast Network, Gospel Tangents, Beyond the Block, and Mormon News Report. So if you want to hear all of us, and we release every few days, so you'll get a lot of updates. So go to lyceum.fm and subscribe there. Now back to our conversation. Interesting as you talked about the Council of 50 being reconstituted in there. You know, I know that the church recently released the Council of 50 Minutes, and it was supposed to have all these bombshells in there. Can you give us any bombshells?
Yeah, I'll give you a great story to start with. When I started the research for this for my dissertation, I went up to one of the church historians in the church history library when it was back in the big white tower. And I said, hey, I'd like to see the Council of 50 Minutes, just to see what they'd say. And the response was, we don't even know if they exist. Right? This was probably 2005. Around 2010, I went and asked again to see what they'd say. And the response from the same church history employee was, well, we know they exist, but they're not available. And then in 2013, this bombshell for all the Mormon studies people were, the Joseph Smith Papers is going to it's going to transcribe and release the Council of 50 Minutes. And, it was 3 years of speculation of, because there's going to be bombshells about succession in here. There's going to be all this stuff, and everybody was waiting for it. And when it came out, it was kind of
It's just boring.
Because it didn't have kind of the big bombshells that we're looking for, but it did have a lot. It did, particularly when it comes to this election. It showed definitively that they were in it to win it, that they had put the full force of the church behind this election, and furthermore, that they believed they were going to win it. And so there are other things that we learn in there. There's great quotes from Joseph Smith about religious liberty. There's we know for sure that they wanted this theodemocracy, and whether they got it in the United States or whether they got it in the West or Texas or Oregon, that was what they planned to do. And so, we got those details, and they're great details, but there was no salamander letter or some kind of bombshell about Brigham Young shouldn't have been the prophet or anything like that.
Well, let me ask you a question about that, because I know I remember reading Michael Quinn. It was a long time ago that I read this, but one of the things that he said, with going back to the Nauvoo Expositor, was this polygamy kind of always grabs the headlines. And, the Expositor published Joseph Smith's polygamy. But the bigger issue, according to Quinn, was that Joseph was seeking alliances with England, France, Texas, which would have been considered treasonous. Can you talk about that? I'm assuming that didn't really happen in the Council of 50 Minutes, and it was speculation, or can you talk to that issue?
So they send a delegate to Texas to negotiate. Woodworth is his name. And that's an independent nation. So the Council of 50 considered themselves to be the kingdom of God on earth, the political kingdom of God that represents it on earth. And so there's a reason why when Joseph Smith is headed to Carthage, he tells William Clayton to either burn or bury the minutes, because they could be construed as treason. They didn't consider it to be treason, but it could be construed that way. So yes, they did send a representative to Texas. They did formally call someone to go to Russia and to England. Those ambassadors, if you want to call them that, never left. But it gives you the mindset that they were acting like a government, right? They were pushing for the United States. They were pushing this idea of Joseph Smith for president. But then if that doesn't work out, where can we go? So then you have to start looking at where you go, who are you going to have to work with? Well, if you go to Texas, you got to work with Texas. If you go to Oregon, which is contested property between the United States, Great Britain, and Russia, then of course you need to be talking with those three countries as well. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, the minutes show that these assignments were made, and the only one that was made and actually went and reported back was the Texas one. But yeah, I mean, the minutes also reveal that on the April 11th meeting, I'm going to say, in the new Masonic hall that had been built.
This is in 1844, I'm
1844, assuming. Sorry, yeah, 1844. They nominate Joseph as king, prophet, priest, and king over Israel, and different from maybe the promises that might be found in an LDS endowment. And so this idea of making him a king over Israel, right, that ends up being leaked. It's in the Nauvoo Expositor that he's made himself, that they're twisting it, right? That he's made himself king, They're twisting it, and so that's
well, I would think that would be an easy thing to twist, because we hate kings, and even the Book of Mormon says it's better that you do not have a king
if they can't be righteous, right?
If they can't be righteous. Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting thing here that Joseph Smith proclaimed king, because we're a democracy. We don't believe in a king.
Well, and it also helps explain, in my opinion, okay, this is just my, and other historians' opinions too, but not all of them. It also helps to explain the Nauvoo Expositor incident, why Joseph was so determined to stop it.
So it wasn't just polygamy?
Oh, no, because think about it. He had this thing with Bennett 2 years before, where he had to send out missionaries everywhere and say, This is not what we're doing. He'd had these plural marriage themes dodging him for years. And so that wasn't anything new. I mean, it was irritable and bad, but this paper's talking about things that are only being said in the Council of 50. So there's a leak. And it's bad. Right? It's bad for the campaign. It's bad for mobs being around. Not so much, the polygamy thing always, sex sells, right? As far as the way the world looks at things. And so, but the more disturbing things, and Governor Ford, who tries to juggle all this, right, that leads to the assassination, he points the finger not at the things with polygamy, but with the mixture of church and state in Nauvoo. And it's by the time of the assassination, it's open in papers, and even in when Tom Ford writes his memoirs, that Joseph Smith had made himself king. This rumor, right, that was going around, which is an easy twist of what actually happened. And so there's a lot more to his assassination that deals with trying to destroy democracy, trying to destroy theodemocracy, or trying to destroy political power than it is about trying to destroy. So you're not lynching people, which is what happens for having multiple wives.
So Joseph Smith was seen as a threat not only because of polygamy, but because he's combining church and state.
More so because he's combining church and state.
Because he's combining church and state, and then he's trying to send emissaries to Russia and England and Texas about, well, if this doesn't work out, we can move there. Right. But that could be twisted to be like, oh, he's against the U.S. government. Look, he's a king. He's sending out ambassadors against the U.S. government. Clearly, he's got bad intentions. I mean, is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah, and that's for me, that feeds into his decision to want to destroy the press before not
so
the press and why, but the Nauvoo Expositor.
It wasn't just polygamy.
No.
If it was only polygamy, Joseph probably wouldn't have destroyed the press?
No.
Really? Okay. So he was concerned about, because he's in the midst of a campaign.
That's way bad press, right, for a campaign,
right?
And you've got this whole group that's of former Mormons and anti-Mormons working together, and regardless of some of the things they would say, the real issue, and they all admit to it. Really, the real issue is he has too much power. It's very anti-American, especially in those days, where you shouldn't have someone telling other people how to vote based on religion, right? Which is the block voting that's going on. You shouldn't have a prophet be a mayor, or a prophet now trying to become president of the United States. It's very anti-American values of that time. And you're also talking about, we're on the frontier, where law and order are just beginning to actually work.
Take hold.
Right? And so extra legal or outside of the law justice is seen as part of the American tradition, right? All the way back to the Tea Party and the Boston Tea Party and the Whiskey Rebellion and all that. And so the people who were opposed to Joseph Smith felt like there's no way, the way he set this up, there's no way we can make him accountable unless we find a way to get him out of Carthage. And when they set that press up, it's a perfect trap, and Joseph springs the trap, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that was the end. Huh. Well, interesting. So it sounds like you would agree with Quinn then on the issue of the expositor and these political issues.
Not only with Quinn, but with lots of historians that and of course polygamy is part of it. That let's not just throw it out the window. But the big issue is not what's going on in bedrooms, what's going on in courts. That Joseph Smith has power in his own city and nobody can reach him. And now and in their minds, now he's looking to extend that power to the whole nation, where he's going to become, not just president, but king. And they can, that's just not going to sit well. It's not going to sit well. It's not going to sit well anywhere in the United States, but especially on the frontier, it's not going to sit well.
Interesting. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dr. Derek Sainsbury. In our next conversation, I'll ask Derek if Joseph Smith really thought he could win in the election.
And we have another account too of a young man who's just living in the mansion house as a worker, and he's at the dinner table eating with Joseph, and they ask him, "Are you really serious about this? You really think you can win? Anybody can? You're going to get any votes that aren't Mormon votes?" And he says, "Yeah, I do." And so he's saying it to the big in stature. He's saying it to the common laborer. There's this enthusiasm that he can win, and if not win, hold such a margin to be able to get one of the parties to make him vice president, or this is the national speculation, make him vice president, or get through the memorials for redress in Missouri, or whatever.
If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, please subscribe to patreon.com/gospeltangents. And for just $5 a month, you can hear the entire interview without any interruption. If you'd like a paperback version of our transcripts, go to amazon.com and do a search for Gospel Tangents interview. Also, if you'd like to give the money to me and not Amazon, please subscribe on my website, and I'll be able to send you a transcript as soon as they are completed, and click the subscribe button. You can also find our latest information on facebook.com/gospeltangents, as well as we're on Twitter @gospeltangents. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. The link is at tinyurl.com/gospeltangents, and you can subscribe there. Also, please give us a 5-star review. If you want to support all of the podcasts as part of the Dialogue Podcast Network, go to lyceum.fm, that's lyceum.fm, and do a search for Dialogue Podcast Network or Gospel Tangents, because, that's a pretty cool one too. Thanks again for listening. Click here to subscribe, here for a transcript, and over here we've got some of our great videos. Thanks again.